Good afternoon. Try to stay on course here. I'd like to introduce John Aron. Deep InfoSec experiences with university experiences in international relations and political science. He is now an advisor to JATF and Build Technology to defend our way of life. Please welcome John.
Thank you. So yeah, it's a nutshell. I found myself now being a consultant to the JATF. Does anyone know what that is? The Joint Applied Task Force to U.S. SOCOM. So we all find our way in life, right? Is this adequate? Can you guys all hear me now? Cool. And so there's do no harm, there's no intent to copyright stuff throughout the whole presentation. This is a unique deck. I rather enjoyed making it. Basically, I'm the founder and CEO of Aronetics, and I'm really helping out our 3, 4, 5-letter agencies mitigate, discuss, be a consultant to defend their networks. I'm invited to their stuff to have their presentations. I literally almost died in 2017. On the other side of my head, like this side, you can see a little bit of faint of a scar. About a year after that, I was like, what about this? So that's kind of a crazy thing. And so, in a nutshell, I love this because we all buy windshield washer fluid, right? Like you go to wherever, you go to AutoZone or whatever, and it kind of cleans your windshield, right? But there's a line of crap on the side of your windshield at the edge where it doesn't go over, and it just piles all your dirt over there. And basically, I got tired of that marketing and put deionized water in my windshield receptacle in my car, which is slowly polishing my windshield. And it kind of mirrors how we market other stuff in society, because they're trying to sell you something, like an 80% solution to actually mitigate the problem. So I'm mitigating dirt in my windshield in a different manner, which costs me about 50 cents per gallon versus $4, $5, $6 for a gallon. And so the internet, as we all know, we've heard today and probably later on today, it's pretty weak. The original intent, because anyone in the room really, I guess, need the mic or stand up and say what the original intent of the internet was, because it was not social media. Connect colleges, yes, military, to share information. That was the intent. Part of some presentations is the juxtaposition of Mark Zuckerberg and Elizabeth Theranos, like which one actually caused more damage? Ish. But hey. And so I attended RSA 2022 and 2023 and listened to a presentation from a Verizon employee who treated identity like pee in the pool. It was a good presentation. But the issue that we have is if you're a solo person playing in your pool, yeah, you can probably clean that with chlorine. But with the 3 million, 3 billion, whatever amount of identities, you can't clean that. Like, you have a water treatment facility to clean that, but that's a different matter. That's like hyperscale. How can you do it, right? And really, to keep it all that way, it's blank. To really think, like, how would you solve this? If the original intent was to share information, I think some people were in the room hear me ask a question to the previous talk on going back to postal mail. If the internet sucks and you can't do it on the internet securely, you do OTP or MFA through the postal mail. Makes sense. Like, it's not on the internet. It doesn't need to be. If you had to redesign the internet, how would you do it? If you had to share information from like UCLA to Davenport to Boston, how would you design that? Because there's papers written, there are famous papers written in 1960s, 1970s, on like, hey, here's our flaws back then that echo the flaws nowadays. And so in society, kind of like Star Wars, we have our credit bureaus. Like that's the buy-all, end-all, right? You can't exactly lie to them. You can't do anything with them. But they're still noteworthy, and they're a target from hackers. You can't have a plural identity there because you have to have, like, you can't have plural identities as a license plate, for example. You can have a plural identity of a street address. You can have plural identities of Gmail. Make as many as you want, right? But you can't lie to them. And especially them. We all know this happened, right? Like all of us know this happened. That's a lot of people. And really, Equifax to support you and defend you, but they can't and never could. We can all agree to that? So it all kind of went to smithereens. It went to shit, right? From a presentation I was invited to do January of this year, I had to forecast from hindsight what 2023 was supposed to bring, but in effect did when they said this is a, McKinsey said it's a $2 trillion opportunity for service providers and technology, when really we saw major hacks. We saw in the previous conversation major hacks being occurred. And so this nonsense, really this nonsense, whose fault is it? Whose fault is it? Is it the user's fault? Or is it the technology provider's fault? Because that's messed up. Does it do it? And so in the whole cyber fog of war, you have our famous FBI Mueller saying there's two types of companies. Can anyone finish it for me? There's two types of companies, those that have been hacked and those that will be hacked. But the reality is much more dark and different. It's those that have been hacked and those that don't know they've been hacked. And so we have social engineering as totally taken from Wired sometime recently, now being the puppet masters of society. Because that was the MGM hack of talking to the help desk, right? That's how that happened. And I happen to recognize, I'm not sure how that became intention, but I saw a little stormtrooper there. I don't know if you guys see that. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. It made me think really about Star Wars. Because was that a planned thing? Was that marketing from like Steven Spielberg in Wired? I mean, I'm sure the Disney folks are making quite a fine dollar, but interesting. And so as the story goes in Star Wars, they had probably actuarial services, they had operations, engineering, errata, like society, like we have, right? And throughout the story, it really was no moon. It's part of, I mean, I saw this as a kid in the theater. Star Wars 4, 5, 6. We've all, most of us, not to age us all, but we've all seen this in the theater, that era, right? And all the new stuff, like, I don't know, I saw it in the theater. And the crazy lessons there, as in Star Wars, really are, we had central control. We have a management staff. We have a CEO or a board of directors or someone in charge making decisions. And it's kind of creepy. We had another old man in charge. Which, hey, Senator Palpatine, overridden. But beneath him, we had this guy who was in charge of the board of directors, who was in charge of the operators. And they're just dutifully doing what they're going to do. They're experts in their own little widget, what they're going to do, and that's all they really know. That's what they're designed to do. They don't, not to knock a lot of other stuff, but yeah, like you're designed to pick up paper and put paper down. You're designed to like cut down a tree. You're designed to pick up a tree, like stuff. And like how the internet is designed and how our computers are designed and how it all kind of is designed is the von Neumann rings in the x86 architecture and other architectures out there that have superficial methods like ring 3. You, as a user or a super user, you're still in ring 3. But once you pierce ring 3, it's all gravy. Kind of like the 10 billion cannons on top of the Death Star. Because the Death Star cannons could take care of those X-Wings on top and like blow them out. But once you pierced that, you were in the channel. And you can't fire a cannon down there. It'd be kind of cool if you did, but no one wants to step on their own toe, and that causes a further problem. You start blowing your own self up. Like, that's not going to be a good story you can sell. I think they grossed $770 million off an $11 million investment to make Star Wars. It breaks the story. You can't have it destroy itself. And so the X-Wing and the TIE Fighter really does provide defense and depth. Go figure. Who thought of that? But to that end, once you compromise that, you have to go different style of mitigating that. You need a different TIE Fighter to take care of that, to go faster and have different maneuverability and do other stuff. But there's a critical vulnerability in there because you're relying on speed and agility. You don't have implicit security of the channel walls. You can fly around all you want, but it doesn't really do anything. And so the critical vulnerabilities from the open source intelligence really found the hole in the Death Star, as the story goes, right? This is probably 34 years old, going to probably laugh at me, but I haven't caught up on the Star Wars. I'm not a Star Wars geek. But it's a good story where once you have the open source intelligence of where it really is and how to mitigate and how to destroy the Death Star, go figure. Just like our von Neumann rings, where we have least privilege in ring 3 all the way to most privilege in ring 0. But really, it's much more like that. Once you pierce ring 3, you get down, and it's difficult to stop, because it's And so what we try to teach in the whole security realm of things, and InfoSec or cybersecurity, really are ethics and morals and integrity, which is crazy. Can anyone at least raise their hand if they recognize this picture? Please? Anyone? No? This is from the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency on the supposed launch of a nuclear widget, if you will, impacting Hawaii. And this was a selfie taken in case there's exploded. Let my family know that I died and here's my last whatever. This caused a ripple through government circles, not saying the names, but there's problems here. I don't have a a laser pointer, but you have the cameras showing which one's out. You have your phone numbers, your password, your face, the local time. It's you did what? Why would you photograph that? Which definitely became a method of hilariousness from a senior advisor at Idaho National Labs, Eric Mickelstein, teaching OPSEC. You should definitely take off your badge when you walk outside, and you're just like a citizen, right? Wear normal clothes. Part of this really is is to not repeat stuff like this, because this is a... If we all behaved like this, especially in the Death Star, like, oh, we're going to implode now, take my picture. We can't even delete our pictures submitted to post online because we can't keep up. It's too much of a... It's a disaster. It's a full-on disaster. And so I'm totally not old enough, I get it, but not to age people, but this is from 1971. And this was originally talking about all the trash in the streets, in your parks and everywhere else, right? But now that trash really became your social media and your OPSEC and everything else. Like, you can imagine some Star Wars guy, some stormtrooper, be like, oh, there's tons of memes online. It's kind of funny to watch these things. I saw one with a stormtrooper in the elevator with Darth Vader walking in. He's dancing, and Darth Vader walks in. He shuts up and behaves like all like rigid, and then the Darth Vader leaves. His cape gets stuck in the door, and he's dancing again, only to really realize the cape is stuck in the door. The door opens again, and he's like, oh, gotta behave now, because he can watch me. And Darth Vader's like, so what's going on here? It's hilarious. It's hilarious because it kind of mirrors how we see society. Like, it's a good story, which at the first one, all the OSINT and all the destruction really destroyed it. It's a good picture from the story. Like, a lot of artifacts of art in it. And so, pretty much, it's hilarious. That happens in society. You have hacktivists, you have freedom fighters, you have terrorists, you have a lot of computer folks doing what they would like to do and disrupting or compromising, whatever. It's a social game out there, and it's interesting at best, because what you need really is to recognize the truth and the trust of the matter. The printed word in the paper, on your social media, like LinkedIn social media, right? I'm sure if the Death Star had actual better story, better quality, they probably had LinkedIn too. Like, hire me over here, please, because my manager sucks. And to that end, the machine, the internals of the machine need to know what's going on. It needs to recognize the good and the bad. The amount of data, the amount of voltages inside your machine need to be recognized for like good or bad. Just like the Death Star, that just was compromised and made a good story, like blown up, and they tried it again, they redid it, and they fixed it again, and that was like, I think like A New Hope Part 6 or like Part 3. I get them confused. The order was backwards. And part of this really is, as the human, not to become the wolf or the sheep, but do we all know what sheep stands for in this case? Source, history, evidence, emotion, and pictures. So slow the heck down. If they had behaved that way on the Death Star, they probably would have stopped the transmission and like all of it. It wouldn't be a good story they could have told over and over and over. It'd be a different story. And the issue really then becomes that most non-kinetic cyber stuff is preventable. Like, you could totally have made a different ending to Star Wars, where that's probably going to infringe on Steven Spielberg and the Disney Star Wars enterprise, but hey, it's not a copyrightable kind of conversation. But securing all of this would be a different manner of concern. There's no TIE fighters, there's no guns, it's absent a lot of activity, it's absent a lot of stuff. And actually to do proper protection of like your bank or your comic book or your PDF requires different manners and different tactics to actually mitigate that issue. And so I happily took that from the old YouTube of all crazy things on the Scorpions, the Winds of Change. That was written around 1990 with the fall of the Berlin Wall. So that's a thing. And to that end, I just had lunch too. So I'm an uncommon still in this ecosystem. I gave presentations to where I would like to give presentations. This is one of them. This is a happy opportunity to come to CornCon and see like-minded folks I kind of know and some people I've seen in the past. It's welcomed. I'd never once thought I'd be doing this, but that's okay too. I was totally a climber, a messenger, just doing whatever I wanted to do. I was a consultant. It was fun. I'd appreciate it if you just stay in touch and how we can actually change a lot of stuff in society. And maybe I even went as far as to invite Steven Spielberg himself to come, at least pay attention. Not that he would, right? But it's an alternate ending to his story, where if the Death Star actually mitigated their issue, they could have stopped the Luke Skywalker and the Rebel Alliance from being rebels. It's kind of crazy to think that way, but it makes for an interesting conversation. Is there any questions? Well, thank you for attending, and I'm happy that I'm talking here. I'm pretty darn busy, and I will probably, I don't know where I'll be speaking next. I'm invited to speak at RSA in Black Hat, but I don't know. I prefer local stuff like this, like B-sides. It's much more higher quality, I suppose. Yes. Source, history, evidence, exploitation, no. Evidence, emotion, and picture. Source, history, evidence, emotion, and picture. It's a matter of slowing down to recognize your own, and your computer needs to go a bit slower too, but it can't. That's 120 megahertz, 100 megahertz, and that's a timing chipped thing, and it doesn't slow down, it just is. It's going to proceed with that technology or that instruction because it wants to. It doesn't know different. Anyone else? Thank you for coming and thank you for listening. I'll give you 30 minutes back.